Good afternoon. My name is Mimi Johannes, and I serve as a Special Projects and Community Manager at the 74. We're a national K-12 education media organization. I have the distinct honor to help facilitate this breakout session entitled, Are You Listening? The Power of the Parent Voice and the Disconnect Between Parents and Grasstop Leadership. Amid the chaos of coronavirus, we have come to realize that parent organizing has never been more important. Decisions are constantly being made at the school, district, state, and federal levels about shaping policies, practices, and resource flows and whatnot. However, parents somehow are left excluded from these conversations, and they're never invited to the table to help shape the agenda. So today we're here to discuss the power of the parent voice, and joining me are the following phenomenal and unapologetic community leaders. We have Dr. Charles Cole, we have Ashley Denise, and Jamie Sims. I would love it if we could start by having each and every one of you provide a brief overview of your background, and we can go ahead and get started with Ashley.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley Verdon. I am a mother of 3 children who live on the far east side of Indianapolis, where we were born and raised. Proud resident of the far east side. I'm just glad to be here today with you all to share a little bit of my story and how we can work together to bridge the gap between the homeschool and the community and really fight together for the change that we want to see in our schools.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Let's go to Dr. Charles Cole.
Oh, hey, y'all. How y'all doing? I'm Charles. I'm an Oakland boy. I do a lot of work around education and research, and I try to have that research centered in the end users of education. So that's parent voices, student voices, and community leaders. And I'm happy to be here with you all.
We're so happy to have you here. Thank you again. And last but not least, let's go to Jamie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Sims. I'm a former middle school principal and a current high school athletic director and assistant professor at Edgewood College in Madison, Wisconsin.
Thank you again for joining us, Jamie. So I definitely want this to be more conversational and whatnot. I do have a couple of questions I wanted to direct to each and every one of you. So we'll get started with Ashley. So Ashley, you are no stranger to this parent organizing and community building work. You've done this for quite a while. You were also a mother, so this is very personal to you. You worked closely with your children's principals and teachers to help launch a group called Parents and Educators Alongside Kids, aka PEAK. So can you talk about the why behind this launch of this organization and how you also managed to effectively collaborate with educators, because we know that there is sometimes that disconnect between families and educators?
So just a little bit about my backstory. Before I even got involved in education, I seen the need to surround myself with community, especially after being isolated for so long with just me and my kids and really struggling trying to make ends meet. Is something dawned on me, like, I can't continue to do this by myself. I'm going to kill myself if I keep on the way I'm going. And I just really started to figure out different ways that I can do that. I first became an AmeriCorps Vista, where I learned about the importance of building social capital, especially in our communities. And in my mind, building my social capital was the best thing that I could ever do. And it really changed my life around 100%. And from what I've learned, and studies show that that's the best way to really make change at a local level or just even within your own household. And so I wanted to spread that message throughout my community. But then it forced me to look more into what was going on inside my home and with my kids and inside the classroom, because I'm thinking I'm out here preaching to my community like we need to do X, Y, and Z, but here it is. I'm getting phone calls every day from my kids' school about my son's behavior, or we're having trouble with attendance just because I was struggling getting them to school. And I realized that me building social capital needed to go inside the school as well. Like, I needed to be intentional about building those relationships with other parents, because I may need somebody to help me get my child to school. I needed to be intentional about building relationships with the teacher, because I need y'all to stop waiting until my child gets in trouble before y'all call me. Like, call me other times than that. Like, y'all, at this point, I don't feel welcomed in y'all establishment because y'all only call me about negative things. And so we went through a year of this, getting calls every other week. And honestly, my son had been getting suspended ever since pre-K. So his second grade year, he got suspended his second week of school. And at this time, they're only working on like building culture in the classrooms and in the school. They're not really doing anything too heavy. So I'm like, what is going on? Like, what is really happening inside our schools to where my son is getting suspended on the second week of school? And so I just really became curious. I started to go into the classrooms more, just really, like I said, being intentional about getting to know who's in our schools, who's running the school. And right away, I started to see like the dynamics of the classroom was all over the place. And there was no like real way that a teacher could actually manage the classroom and all the behaviors that came with it and effectively teach our children at the same time. And so that made me want to come more and help and learn the math lessons. So I'm here learning third grade math, second grade math, trying to figure out how I can help in the classroom, so that, and just so the teacher can get a bathroom break. It became such a success, like with my child. Like I know next thing you know, like the calls, you know, they stopped becoming so frequent. My child's grades improved a great deal. Like we were actually showing up to class. Our attendance became better. Like we were working more together as a family to make sure we were successful in the classroom. And because of the success that my family had, and knowing that I wasn't the only one going through that, my school is known for suspending kids. So I figured there's a way that we can spread this school-wide so that we can all experience the success that I experienced. And that looked like, for me, like I said, just getting to know the kids, hearing their voices. And then when I see their parents, maybe the teacher can't call and compliment their child, but I can. Like I sat with your child, and your child have read a whole book with me today, and they did so well. You know, like I love giving people their praises, and that helped me build those relationships with those parents. And I realized, you know, like I said, in order to see the transformational change that we need, it's really gonna take us all working together. Like I can't do it by myself, because I don't know, as a parent, I don't know like what it takes to run a school. I don't know what it takes to run a classroom. And in order to really find out like the ins and outs in a holistic way, you gotta build those relationships, you gotta work together. And that's what we did. We got teachers on board, we got kids on board, we got educators, you know, and it was beautiful. Like we had, our first event was a neighborhood cleanup, because that was another thing that we recognized is like, these schools are coming into our communities and they're expecting us to engage with them right away, but they're not doing anything to engage with us. And so we invited all the parents and school and teachers and to come out, the board members, the CEO was out there. We're out here working together, building our social capital, but at the same time, making a change in the neighborhood that we're in. So it just really was a journey, an amazing journey. And I really encourage like all schools to really start looking at your parents. Cause here it was like, I don't have a college degree. I'm just a mother. And what I've noticed, that most schools, most educators look at parents as deficits, and we got to stop that. Like, if you look at somebody as a deficit, if you feel like, if you constantly approaching them as if they're not good enough to do something, they're not going to do it. They're not going to step up to the plate. But here it was, somebody gave me the opportunity to lead, and I stepped up and we made it happen together, and it was beautiful. And now I'm able to change the mind of like educators all over. Like, I'm going to make you believe that we got something to offer. You know, we're not just like I said, we're not just the face on the other side of the phone for you to call when you're having disciplinary issues. That's not how we're going to work together. That's not going to work for us. So please, like I said, stop looking at us as deficits and stop looking at our babies as deficits. Like, we are assets, and we want to be partners in the education, but we just don't know how, and we don't know where to fit in. Yeah. So That's why I'm here to like spread that message and help parents really see that they have a place in their child's education outside of their home, like actually inside the school. So
you are preaching. I'm like, you want to take it away? You want to be the moderator? Yeah, I just want to just quickly say you are not just a parent, you are a powerful parent. So I know that you already have that sense of empowerment within you. And I just really appreciate the passion that you're bringing to this conversation and the passion that you bring to the work that you do. I want to kind of just, switch gears a little bit and transition to Jamie. So Jamie actually did serve as a principal in the past. And I want you, Jamie, to talk a little bit about your work in terms of collaborating with families and also working with grass top leaders in your community to help impact change on behalf of your Black students.
No problem. So again, I did serve as a middle school principal for the past 5 years, and I had the blessing of serving in a very diverse school. So it was a school in which the majority of my students did look like me or similar to me. And of those last 5 years, I would say 3 of those last 5 years, the work that we've done as a staff and the professional learning was grounded in race and equity work. And one of the biggest learnings for me was just because I'm a Black man didn't mean I was able to represent all of our cultures, and realizing what I needed to do or what I need to realize that I didn't need to do to make sure that we're effectively reaching all of our families and getting them engaged with the learning that was taking place in our building, or more importantly, that we wanted to be taking place in our building. So for me, it meant having a lot of in-person meetings. It meant really doing the foundational work around building relationships with the grassroots organizations, and more importantly, the parents and the families in the community, to get them into my building to see what was happening and to see how we could truly partner together to ensure that their kids were getting what they need, what we wanted for them as educators, what I wanted for them as a principal, and ultimately what they wanted for them as parents, and knowing that we had to be a team in doing that, and we couldn't work against each other with the ultimate goal of having student achievement, wanting that to be the outcome. So it took a lot of intentionality on my part with being, not just vulnerable, but being willing to go beyond the 4 walls of my building to build relationships with families and community members, and, bridge that gap and do that work. And I was able to see a huge amount of success by getting ideas of, what would be appealing to you to get you back into a school. And also learning the background of a lot of people that didn't want to be in the school because of their own horrible experiences when they were students. Again, I'm from the South, and I have my fair share of horrible experiences with education, being a Black man as well. So I had to realize and understand that also, like, that's a barrier, number one, of being able to truly know and understand why people felt the way they did. And just because I had the title of principal, or being a Black man with that title, meant that there's sometimes going to be a wall that automatically went up that I had to be willing to work around or work to tear down, so people can truly know, my heart and my passion for their students. And, I learned at the end of the day, and it's kind of my mantra now, is people don't care how much you know until they first know how much you care. And if parents don't know that you're doing what you're doing because you truly care about their kid, they don't give a crap what degree you got. They don't care what best intentions you have. You have to be able to build a relationship where people know that you do what you do because you care about them and their kids. And so that's something that I learned over time that really helped me. And we used to do, something that I'm most proud of that we used to do every year is we do a big welcome back party before school started every year. And I get a DJ, I get barbers to come out and get free haircuts, and we barbecue, and we just will have a good time for a couple hours the week before school started, because I knew that that's something that the parents and families in my community would come out to. Not because I made it up, but because that's what they told me. I took their feedback and I made action with it, not gave them what I thought was a good suggestion of what we should do for them and their families and their kids, but I got the feedback from them and did what they told me would work. So that's just a little bit about what I've done to help bridge that gap in my line of work.
Thank you so much for that background, and for all of your work too. I know both you and Ashley just mentioned that relationship building is key, right? I know Sarah Carpenter, who couldn't join us today, had mentioned that you got to be a friend before you need a friend. So before you want these parents to get on your side, before you want these educators to get on your side, like you have to try and find a way to, just be there and show up whenever you need to truly make the changes that you're looking to see in your community. Jamie, you actually said, you talked about your own experiences about how the education system might have failed you while you were growing up. Charles, I know you go into this a lot in your work with energy converters and also as one of the co-hosts of the 8 Black Hands. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind your work with energy converters and, your opportunities to raise awareness of educational inequities throughout our nation?
Yeah. First, I want to thank Jamie for his service and that recognition that he was talking about. Just because we Black don't mean that we all got the same cultures and things of that nature. And just I loved what Ashley had to say. And what Ashley had to say is a big part of why I do the work that I do. So, I went to a double-digit number of schools. And both my parents, my mother and my father, were both in and out of jail and struggling with substance abuse. So I went to schools in Chicago and Kentucky, then California. And those people, that probably didn't have kids themselves, but every time they called my mom, it was about something that I was doing wrong. And she was already trying to get her life together. And so part of this was, you got to always respect, who that parent is. And that parent is always the expert on their kid and never give your power away, whether you got a PhD or you dropped out in the 5th grade, right? So, going to those schools, and I didn't know this then, but when you suspend, especially Black boys and Black girls, if you get suspended twice in a year, your chances of going to jail go up exponentially, right? And so those systems just didn't love me. And they didn't speak the same language as me. They didn't speak the same language as my parents. And we were never like the center of what was going on in education. And it's a shame. If you tell me reading scores around the country that I could probably guess which race falls into which category, and that's a problem, right? This system wasn't built for us. And so my work has always been around developing the end user, like the end users, and starting with the end users of education, which is students, parents, and that community. And so if we start with their issues and their needs, then schools should be malleable around what it is that they need. And sometimes I'm the translator for that, and I can give that push, but ain't nothing more powerful than a mom like Ashley, especially when it's 2 or 3 or 4 of them coordinated and they showing up in unison, telling you what needs to happen. These white folks do it all the time. So that was always, I have friends that got, I write about it in my book, but one of my best friends got murdered in between the 8th and 9th grade, and he couldn't read, you know what I'm saying? And that could have easily been me. So, I step into this for that, fighting for my mother or the Ashleys or these folks who just, their voices aren't heard. And even I fought the academy when I was getting my doctorate around it. They wanted me to write to the academy. I said, I don't care about the academy. So what I did, and I had a great chair that allowed me, every time I got a chapter approved, I took it to Black moms. If they couldn't follow something, I would change it. And if it didn't fit, I would take it out, because if somebody like my mom can't read this and apply it, then what's the point of it, right? So that's what inspired me to do what I do.
Thank you so much for your work, Charles. I know this isn't an easy feat at all, so I really appreciate how relentless you've been throughout this entire journey. I want to talk a little bit about the coronavirus, right? In my opening statement, I mentioned that this is really a time where we've seen parent organizers step up and show people this is why we're doing this work, this is why. And I want to kind of just hear a little bit from any of you about how you've seen parents step up and really demand to be heard in the midst of all of this chaos, and especially the pandemic.
I'll go quick. I'd actually rather hear from both Ashley and Jamie more than me on this. But one of the things that we did during this pandemic is I started a fund, the People's Literacy Fund, which is a play off of the People's Food Program started by the Black Panthers. I went to the same elementary school as Huey P. Newton and actually in Oakland. And my parents, both of them, went to Proviso East in Chicago, Maywood, where Fred Hampton went, right? So I grew up around Panthers. And if you surviving during the coronavirus in the most expensive place to live in the world right now, and your kids are being able to read, and you Black or brown, I think you're an expert. And I'd rather give money directly to you, and we should be listening to you on what you're doing, so we can then, again, make adjustments on the other side to kind of help with that. And just because you don't use the same language as some of these educators do, right? Like those people are geniuses. My mother both my parents raised a doctor, and we lived in 4 shelters, and they smoked crack. Like somebody should have been pulling them aside and asking them what the hell they did and how they did it. So anybody that's surviving this moment and actually finding ways to thrive, I have no problem going to them and putting that power back in them and just listening and learning.
Yeah, that resonated with me, Dr. Cole, a lot, and I'm glad you brought that up, because my initial thought when you asked that question, Mimi, was like, many times the misconceptions that we have when we think about our, most underserved students and families is that the parents aren't capable. Our Black parents aren't capable of handling, the pandemic and their kids being at home with online learning for many, and those that aren't. Don't get me wrong, it's not the ideal situation for many of us, most of us. I'm a parent as well, but to understand that is truly a misconception, because if Dr. Charles' family could do it, I come from a similar family that also did it. My parents were hard workers. Neither one of them had a graduated from high school, but yet they knew and instilled the values in me to be able to make sure that I knew and was able to do what I needed to do to be the first child in our family to go to a post-secondary institution and go to college and get a degree. And one might say, how are your parents able to do that? They themselves didn't even graduate from high school. Our families and our Black community has the abilities and the potential to do above and beyond what many people give them credit for and think that they can and will do. And so that's one misconception that I know, even given the pandemic, that I never try to put out there, because I know our families are capable and able. That doesn't mean that we all don't need resources and help along the times. I still do, we all still do. But to think that because of the situation that we in, that our Black and brown kids still aren't going to learn, that's a lie, because they are. And our parents are able to make that happen, and they are making that happen.
Absolutely. Ashley, do you have anything else you want to share with us?
Yes to everything that Charles and Jamie just shared. But just to shine the light on this, I've loved watching how parents have been more vocal about what they're experiencing. I think one thing that I've noticed is that we often feel like we're the only ones going through what we're going through and experiencing what we're experiencing. But now you're seeing like people sharing their stories and actually building a community and coming together around these issues and looking out for each other when need be. But my biggest, the thing that I've enjoyed the most about, if I had the big thing that I've enjoyed going through this pandemic with e-learning and being stuck in the house and all of that, it's just really watching families prioritize self-care, like not only as parents and caregivers, but just like making sure that they're promoting it within their household and like working more together as a family unit. And it just really strengthened a lot of bonds, like I said, within the community and within the households. There's still a whole lot of work that needs to be done, but it really showed, I really appreciated too how it highlighted the huge disconnect between the home and the school, so that we can really begin to reimagine what it would look like to really bring us along, side as true partners in education. We've been here, we've been doing the work with our kids, we've been supporting them the best that we can. Now, how can we really be acknowledged for that? And then, like, as Charles mentioned, like, how can we become the center of what's going on around us? I really feel like this pandemic has highlighted how parents are always bought in for feedback on something that was already created, and we're expected to just be like, oh, okay, just take whatever they've handed us and, just kind of deal with it and make changes in our own lives, instead of saying like, let's bring the parents to the table to see like what a high quality school looks like. What does school choice mean to them? Just really being intentional and really wanting to get to hear what parents have to say instead of waiting until some disaster happens. And, so I really enjoyed just watching everything being exposed and kind of so that we can really see where we need to go in and start to really hammer down and start fixing stuff.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is truly a time to reimagine education, and parents should be at the center of that conversation. Of course, students should be at the center of that conversation too. And my dream is to, make sure that parents are leading these discussions on behalf of their students. I want to think about, Ashley, you just mentioned choice, right? This is a time now more than ever where parents are really exploring the concept of choice, right? These are parents from all communities thinking about what that really means for their students. If we're thinking about high quality educational experiences, we know not every student is getting what they deserve right now. And like you mentioned, Ashley, COVID has totally exacerbated all the inequities, particularly for Black and Brown students. And a lot of parents have been, from what we've seen in a coverage that we're doing at the 74 and just in education news generally, a lot of parents have been looking into other choice aspects. So whether it might be vouchers or looking to pull their kids out of their school and putting them into another school, maybe it's a public charter school or something of that sort. And I want to talk to you all a little bit about, what type of resistance have parents been met with lately in regards to choice? And I just want to hear from like your personal experiences, if you have any that you could share.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I've seen a lot of parents just with, we've never done this before. E-learning was brand new to a lot of our schools here in our urban communities. Out in the suburbs, they kind of already had laptops and iPads and all that stuff going, so it was kind of easier for them to transition. But and I applaud the schools for the work that they've done, but it was still a mess. And I've watched a lot of parents switch over to homeschooling their kids. And but now it's like they're shuffling, trying to find resources to help their children with, doing well with that. But other than that, we haven't seen, too much resistance with parents utilizing their choice. Well, I haven't seen it personally. I just know I've struggled a lot myself with just really believing that we do have a choice, and just really having a lot of conversations as to like, what is school choice? Like, is all factors being considered? Like, I know here in Indy, we do have a pretty good school choice program. We have vouchers. You can pretty much go to any school that you want, but there's just so many other things that are not considered, like lack of transportation, just all kind of things. I know, just like myself personally, I stay in Indianapolis Public School District, but my kids attend a charter school, which is right down the block. I don't have a car. We missed all the deadlines to enroll into any other type of programs. So it's kind of like we're stuck, and I don't want to send my child to a failing school. So it's like we're especially in the middle of a pandemic. So I would say if there was any type of resistance, it would just be like this internal battle and me wanting better for my children and not really knowing if the school that I chose originally is the same school now, and how can I rectify that? How can I, find something better for my child with what we have? So just really been trying to explore like what school choice really is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your insight. Jamie or Charles, do you all have any, personal experiences being met with like resistance in regards to choice yourselves, or like with parents that you work with and help organize?
So for me, I would say I haven't met much resistance at all, but I think it's also because in the school district that I came from and the current school district that I'm in, we provided those resources for families to have for their students in the form of Chromebooks or computers. So that hasn't been kind of a hurdle for them. So we've been able to provide that, which is a huge blessing. And I know that everyone doesn't have that. And also this school district that I'm currently in and my last one has done a phenomenal job with the service delivery model, knowing that less is more because of this change in the times we're living in, and being able to have a service delivery model that's still helping students to be able to learn with not overloading them at home and not putting as much stress on parents to have to be the teacher when that's not what they're signed up to be, So I think that's been a blessing with my current position and my previous one.
Thank you for sharing. What about you, Charles? Any experiences with
Yeah.
families working
Mimi, Jamie, Ashley, y'all might have to bring me back on this one because it definitely, I might lose it a little bit. I mean, yeah. So there's a lot of folks that got a lot to say about my Black or brown parents that's making choices. And I don't even call, I believe in parent choice, not school choice, right? Where it's like you choose what's best for you, and school choice is turned into a different term or whatnot, even though it's, you know, but here's the thing, right? The thing is, when you make those choices, right, it don't mean that you're going to pick a perfect school. What it means is make the choice that's best for your kid, and then you still got to fight like hell regardless of what that system is, right? And the other thing is, a lot of people are talking about it like there's supposed to be a loyalty to a system. I'm not loyal to any system. People keep talking about democracy or billionaires are telling you to do this or whatever, that's, that, and the third. And like, no. The parents I work with all grew up in Oakland like I did. They went to OUSD schools, and many of them have kids in both the traditional schools and charter schools or doing homeschool or whatever the case is. They just really trying to find the best thing for their kids. But when they actually use that agency or vote with their feet or whatnot, then white folks have the audacity to say that a billionaire is making them do something because they want you to be faithful to a system. I don't care about none of these systems. I don't care about none of these schools. I care about, are people getting what they need, and I'm gonna go in on you. So when we have people push back, I work with real parents that'll get up in your nose and be like, check this out, you talking about my kids, and then they kind of punk out and then they back down a little bit. If I'm being real, I'm in Oakland, so it's a different type of vibe, especially with the gentrification that's happening, and people are sick of it. Here's what I'll tell you to parents though, right? Don't give your power up, because my favorite, people always ask me what I'm reading. When you become a doctor, they ask you stupid questions like that. The most impactful book I've read is some shit that I read when I was in like 5-6 years old, and it's called The Emperor Has No Clothes. And the reason why I say that is Black kids still can't read. So either you don't know how to get Black kids reading, or you do know how to do it and you just choosing not to, which is even worse, right? So we all in this together, and we all got to be willing to fight together. And so, you know, we get a lot of resistance when if like we get some money from somewhere and we give it back out to parents or whatever the case is. And I just think that that's just a huge problem. And it's, again, I think it's a silent form of racism that's basically saying, hey, you Negroes can't come up with this stuff on your own. So who is actually putting this in your head and making you do this? And I think that that's just the most disrespectful thing. And I'll end on this, because before I get too excited, I done already slipped up and cursed, but I am who I am. So it is what it is. But, you know, we are right now going at police unions, because police unions have been a rest haven for white folks with no accountability, that's been attacking and murdering Black bodies like indiscriminately out here in these streets, right? The same heat and energy you got for that system, I need you to have the same heat and energy for a teachers union that's doing the same thing, which is a rest haven for mostly white women educators, that's damaging and killing your baby's brain with no accountability and not having to hold nothing up. The woman just talked about a pre-K kid getting suspended. What the hell can a pre-kindergartner do to get suspended? What can a second grader be doing to get suspended, right? But if you say something about that system, then you got Red for Ed, and they marching and they striking. Well, what about when parents need to strike and students need to strike and say, we actually deserve better than this? And if you don't give me what I need, then you're going to get all holy hell up in these streets. And you got that kind of power, because if you didn't, they wouldn't try to stop you at every turn around using your voice or around the organization that Ashley is building, or when Jamie is trying to talk to parents. Let me give you a little dirty secret that Jamie can't tell, because I worked in a district. Teachers have so much power, like principals have had to go to parent power in order to get certain teachers removed because the union is so strong. Like there are some principals here that have to give coded, like, look, ask these questions so then I can act, but without that, I can't do this. Their hands are tied, right? This is the system that we in, and it's doing what it's meant to do. And unfortunately, Black boys and Black girls tend to get the brunt of it, and parents get constantly disrespected.
Ooh, that was a word.
Sorry.
And then some.
Sorry.
No,
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Be unapologetic. Okay. I'm here for it. And Charles, you hit this, already, but I would love to know, do you all have any practical pieces of advice on how to get parents and grass top leaders, it could even be leaders of unions, right? If that day ever comes, more aligned around education in the Black community. Like there's this huge disconnect right now, but we got to get on the same page for the love of God to augment, Black education, especially in this time where we're all already kind of reimagining education. But any practical pieces of advice for, grass top leaders and parents to work together?
I don't know how practical this is, but just really taking the time out to get to know each other first, to see, because what I've learned is, we have to be willing to engage people from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, from different political lines. Like, we need to be able to have these conversations with each other. And until we do that, we'll never really be able to know where people stand. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like Jamie mentioned, you really don't care what people know until you know that they care. And for a while, I just always looked at it as, and then too, just to touch on what Charles was just saying, it's like these billionaires are running what's going on. Education is very funding driven. And it's like our kids are a hustle to these people. And, we can't continue to allow that. And I really feel like we just, as parents, need to speak up more. And that's what we're really trying to explore. Over the past year, I've had like over 400 one-to-one conversations with parents, community leaders, educators, just really trying to figure out how we can do that. And so that's all I have, just really working together to build relationships first and making that the foundation of what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jamie, were you going to add anything?
Yep. I was going to say, for me, one of the biggest, things for me that I would share, and, I share this a lot even when doing race and equity training, is if you stand for everything, you'll fall for anything. So you got to truly be able to do your homework and know yourself before you're able to start telling other people about systems and systemic racism and all of these ins and outs that happen. So I'm glad Dr. Cole mentioned that, because you hit the nail on the head, brother. That's so true. But until you are willing to do your own homework in isolation and learn about yourself and know your own personal identity and what you truly believe and what you stand for, it's hard to really make movement, because you will find yourself going with whatever's popular at the time. So you got to know yourself and know what you believe in and know why you believe in what you believe in order to truly lead for change. So that's the one thing that I, always advocate for when it comes to doing work around race and equity in our families, is that you got to be willing to do the homework yourself, so you know what you're advocating for, so you know what you're trying to push on other people, so that when you do get pushback, you know what you stand for. Because if you don't, you'll get swayed real easy and find yourself on the other end of the spectrum when you started off on one side. So for me, that's something that I stand firm in.
That's such a great piece of advice. I think we can all take that, to be honest. And I wanted to kind of end on this question. So we are in this very tumultuous election cycle, and that's an understatement, right? And I want to know, no matter what the outcomes are with all of these elections from a local to a national level, how can parent organizing groups continue to hold our elected officials accountable, our civic organization leaders accountable to providing equitable educational opportunities moving forward? And this is specifically for our Black and Brown students.
Yeah, I listen, I study Malcolm X and Derek Bell. I believe in by any means necessary, and I believe in interest convergence. No permanent enemies and no permanent friends. And what I mean by that is, find out the strategy that's going to work best for you. Sometimes you got to be the person coming up and yelling and being ready to smash some stuff. Sometimes it might be an organization that got some funding for you and you ain't got to be best friends, but hey, we align today. We might not be aligned tomorrow, but I need to get what I need to get. And I just think that, you have to have a by any means approach in order to get your babies what they need. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. And that's why I show up and listen, I love tailored suits. I wear suits and all that stuff, but that's why I'm here with gold fronts and a hoodie, right? I didn't see me reflected when I was coming up, when I was growing up. I played ball because that's what I saw. And be honest, basketball did a lot for me and kept me out of trouble. But our kids should be able to see professionalism and should be able to see success and see themselves reflected in other ways. So regardless of who wins, regardless of who wins the national, local school boards or whatever, be involved and know your stuff, but you got to be ready to work and fight regardless of who gets in there. It don't stop at the election day, right? It's like if my candidate wins, school board president or otherwise, I'm there ready for you to actually carry out the things that's in my self-interest and my family's and community self-interest. And if the other people win, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna push you to do the things that I need you to do regardless. None of this stuff is set up for us. So if you know that stepping in and through the door, you can make the right choices. So, and thank y'all for having me. And I'm honored to be on here with Jamie And Ashley, keep doing what you're doing and keep talking the way that you talk, because I wish I had that when I was younger.
Thanks, Charles. Ashley or Jamie, any thoughts around that?
And I just want to echo everything he just said, and then too, just to add, show up. I mean, like, I got people think I know way more than I know, but I just show up and I listen. I do a lot of reflecting, like Jamie said. I always like check where I'm at. What are my self-interests? What privileges do I have that I need to check and leave at the door? Because it's not about me. So we just have to continue to show up, fight, and do the work to stay informed on what's going on in our local, just even if you want to start with your local community, and branch out further, but not trying, just taking it one step at a time, not just trying to inundate yourself with everything that's going on. Just do what you can. We all have a role to play in this fight. I can't do what Charles does. I can't do what you do, Mimi. I can't do what Jamie does, but I hold myself down the best that I can. And I hope that, my kids see it, and other kids that are around us. I hope other parents see it, and I'm going to continue to bring them along with me. I'm going to continue to invite them out to meetings and to the city council building, So yeah, just show up.
Great piece of advice. Yes. Jamie, you want to close it out?
Yeah, echo everything that's been said. It's so true. I just be an agent for change, be willing to be an agent for change, and know that doesn't come easy. Knowing that it takes, like Ashley says, showing up, knowing that it takes being informed and knowing what you're showing up for, and being willing to stand alone sometimes if you have to, for what you know is right for your kids and for our babies, because they need it. Doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy, but it's needed, period. So be willing to be an agent for change.
Period. Well, thank you all again for this insightful conversation. I know it's not going to just, this whole concept of parent power and parent voice is not just going to start here. It's definitely not going to end here. And we want to make sure that this is just going to be the start of something greater and bigger moving forward. We, like I said, are in the middle of a very tumultuous election cycle. So no matter what the outcomes are, I hope that we can all still continue to stay engaged, stay encouraged, because this is a fight that we have to be relentless about. This is a fight that's bigger than all of us. And when we're thinking about education equity, we have to really be diligent about this, because our kids deserve so much better. I encourage you all to please make sure you're following along on what all of our speakers are up to. Make sure you follow them on their respective platforms. And for all of your education related news, please make sure you follow the 74 on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to continuing this conversation.